What is something that was normal in medieval times, but would be weird today? This was a love potion recipe from the 10th century. A woman will lay a cloth on the ground and cover it in grain. She will then strip her clothing off and cover her body in honey. After that, she will roll around on the cloth and try to get covered in grain. Afterwards, she will get up and take the grain stuck to her body over to the mill and ground that into flour. She will then use that flour to bake bread and give it to her husband to eat. There was also another love potion that involves a wife presenting her naked butt to her husband, who then rolls bread dough on it that will be turned into bread. Donating your urine to a dyer. Duels over a bride at a wedding. The hue and cry, literally shouting that someone stole something and having the whole village chase after them. Wearing a codpiece. Animal courts. By far the most serial offenders were pigs, accused and convicted of chewing off body parts and even eating children. Most were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging or being burned at the stake. In 1386, a convicted pig was dressed in a waistcoat, gloves, drawers and a human mask for its execution. A barber doing surgery. Outlawry, which stripped a person of all legal rights and allowed anyone to kill them with impunity. Having rules about what colors and what type of clothing and hats you could wear, based on your occupation or social level. The royal ass wiper. Seriously, someone would wipe the king's ass. And it was a respected position. Seeing someone in stocks on a stage in public. Going to sleep as soon as it gets dark, waking up and hanging out with your family for a few hours in the middle of the night, and going back to bed until sunrise. Throwing your shit out of the window. Fight instead of divorce. Why waste time on courts and child support? In medieval Germany, if a husband and wife reached a dead end on some important issue, they entered the ring. The rules, of course, equalized the forces of men and women. In the ring, the man was in a hole, one hand was tied behind his back, so that he could strike with only one hand. And the wife was given a bag of coal, with which she struck. Whoever wins the fight inflicts serious injury, or the defeated one asks for mercy, is, therefore, right in the dispute. Sleeping with your entire family in one bed. Or if you are a king, sleeping in the same bed with a rival king to cement your friendship and respect for each other, as brothers. Privacy was just not really a thing in the Middle Ages. Edit. I came at this with a pretty Western perspective, obviously. Many families around the world still sleep together in the same bed space. However, in modern Western culture, it isn't considered as normal as it would have been in previous centuries. You have insulted my honor, I challenge you to a duel. Wearing cloaks. I don't understand why cloaks are amazing, we should bring cloaks back. Brushing your teeth with a stick. Leprosy. In medieval times it was a common practice to display tapestries on walls instead of oil paintings and other works of art. Having multiple children, over many years, while living in a one-room dwelling. Ada, I had answered the question assuming Op was talking about the socio-economic and cultural experience that the time period was, and not the time all over the world. My bad. Pissing and shitting in a bowl and just tossing your shit out the window in the morning. Never traveling more than a few miles outside of your village or town. Public executions. Carrying a sword. More horrifying than weird, but burning cats alive was a popular form of entertainment in medieval and early modern France. The cultural historian Robert Darnton writes, "Greater than cats also figured in the cycle of St. John the Baptist, which took place on June 24th, at the time of summer solstice. Crowds made bonfires, jumped over them, danced around them, and threw into them objects with magical power, hoping to avoid disaster and obtain good fortune during the rest of the year. A favorite object was cats tied up in bags, cats suspended from ropes, or cats burned at stake. Parisians liked to incinerate cats by the sackful, while the Corimos or cour amio, or cat chasers, of Saint Chamond preferred to chase a flaming cat through the streets. In parts of Burgundy and Lorraine they danced around a kind of burning maypole with a cat tied to it. In the Metz region they burned a dozen cats at a time in a basket on top of a bonfire. In fact, it was normal to pick your nose back then. Not European, but foot binding is weird as fuck. Like, let's make this kid wear tiny shoes so her feet stay like kids' feet her whole life so men find her more attractive. Public baths. Not on the same scale as they were in Rome, but it was still pretty common to have a bathhouse in medieval Germany and surrounding places to bathe in a group in a large tub of hot, fragrant water, called a Zuberbad in German. Now everyone's all hung up nudity. Even among friends, so it's way less common, although you can still enjoy a public Zuberbath at medieval markets and Renaissance fairs in Germanic countries. Assuming that most women you meet can't read. Assuming that most men you meet either can't read or can also read Latin. Not going more than 20 miles from where you were born. Salt being extremely expensive. Getting some comments here. Expensive is a relative statement, and when you consider that less than 3 hours of minimum wage buys a 50-pound bag of salt today, it's safe to say that a modern person would be surprised at how expensive salt was. Additionally, salt in West Africa was expensive even in absolute terms. Barbers also being doctors and performing surgery. Marrying second cousins. When nobody travels and villages are small, it's pretty much unavoidable. Huge age disparities between husband and wife, both of whom are getting married for the first time. Paying different taxes based on religion. I've taken medieval literature in college. There's a lot of strange things that was normal for them but strange for us. Selling off your daughter so the rest of your family can eat, putting iron near your baby to protect them from changelings, extra. Gruesome executions that took a while to actually kill someone. Seriously, medieval people, WTF is it with sentencing people to be burned at the stake or crucified or drawn and quartered? A swift beheading was the most benevolent way to kill someone in the old days but not widely practiced as it turns out. I read a book from the 1930s about life in medieval England. One of the things that really stuck out was the level of animal cruelty, and I don't just mean beasts of burden and whatnot. In one section on the types of games played at fairs there was one, for example, which involved tying a rooster to a peg and then the contestants took turns throwing stones at it. Whoever killed it was the winner. Bear baiting, bull baiting and baiting just about any kind of animal, usually ending in it being killed, was the height of wholesome fun. The stereotype that girls were the hornier sex. On second thought. Let's sleep on some hay on the floor. Having people help you get dressed and undressed as an adult. Wielding supreme executive power because some watery tart threw a sword at you. Sleeping all together on the floor, with people casually having sex without problems. Boiling fruit before you eat it. People in medieval times thought raw fruit was bad for you, so they boiled their fruit before eating it. Boiling removes vitamin C from fruit. This habit is thought to be one of the reasons why there were high rates of scurvy in medieval times. One of the symptoms of scurvy is hallucinations. Scurvy-induced hallucinations are thought to be one of the reasons why so many people in medieval times were documented to have had religious visions. LPT, if you want to see Jesus, stop ingesting vitamin C. Possible side effects include loss of teeth, bleeding gums, aforementioned hallucinations, suppression of immune system, and death. The name Lance isn't popular in this day and age, but back in medieval times people were called Lancelot. Pursuing a man with 6 fingers on one hand who killed your father to avenge his death. I haven't killed an Englishman in 5 days. William Wallace. Eat foods without processed sugar. Women plucking their hairline to make their forehead bigger. In the c13th, there was this whole European aesthetic about women's sexy foreheads. So women would pluck their hair to make the forehead bigger and sexier. Whenever I tell my classes about this they go, ew, but they are all manscaping and waxing other body parts. Public executions. Bloodletting. Marring minors. The concept of killing the wife by burning when the husband dies, called as sati. The church controlling your entire life. If they decreed you were evil you were fucked. Now you can tell the Pope to fuck off and people will cheer. In modern times we've criminalized violence, delegitimized honor, and banned rules against social stratification. All of this exists in medieval times. In the medieval period, you were allowed to kill a man for insulting your honor or for stealing something from you. Burning people because the church finds them a Sus. The whole family waking up at midnight to drink and bullshit for an hour or two before going back to bed.